You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. We are talking Chiefs schedule here as it is finally out. Giddy, the excitement. God bless your NFL bosses, Jeff, and their ability to make everything a big deal and to suck up all the oxygen on the sports calendar, no matter what it is. We will talk about the schedule. How difficult is it? Playing in Brazil, does that alter the chances of the Chiefs winning in week one? They're on Thanksgiving and Christmas, plus the most primetime games. What does that mean for the Chiefs' chances of winning? Bye week, week 10, good spot, bad spot. What's the most critical stretch of this schedule? What's the easiest stretch? What's the Chiefs' record going to be? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. And let's talk some schedule, fellas. It's out. What do we think, Jeff? Hard, easy? I've heard some people kind of spin it both ways. What do you make of what it is? We've known the opponents. Now we know the order, right? That's so we can bring it all together. We have all the information we need. How is the schedule look in your mind?
I wouldn't call it easy. I mean, some tough teams on that schedule. So it's anybody calling it easy probably hasn't looked at anybody else's schedule in the NFL, because there's some strong championship caliber teams on this docket. I would say it's probably middle of the road. It's about what you'd expect. I mean, there's some pockets there where you could see them having some difficulty, and like as always, starting strong is going to be a big part of this. They've got some tough games up there early, but look, I think that they've got some breaks in there too, with some of these, like the Eagles coming to Arrowhead, the Ravens coming to Arrowhead, the Commanders coming to Arrowhead. They've got some breaks in there too. So I think it's probably middle of the road.
Yeah. By the way, Josh, tough schedule, but must watch. Yes, I would agree. That's, I think it is a great schedule as far as some great games on there. Sam, what do you think? You call this easier, harder? I heard some people say, well, it's one of the easiest schedules the Chiefs have had during this dynasty. It does not look that way to me. I'm sorry, but it's not looking that way to me. What do you see?
Well, statistically, they have the sixth hardest schedule in the NFL, and I base that on the Vegas win total projections, not last year's record, which is how you should do strength of schedule. But when you go back and look at this historically, it's amazing how frequently the Chiefs have a certain ranked schedule, and then by the end of the year, statistically, it actually winds up being easier than people anticipated. Part of that, sure, you could say is because the Chiefs played them, but in terms of like DVOA schedule, here's their last several years: 12th, 18th, 26th, 12th, 21st, 14th, and 20th.
Now wait a minute, though, but that's the ranking after the season is done.
Right. Yeah,
and I do think that they're part of that is because the flaw in the NFL scheduling formula, and they do it all by mathematics. And I'm not trying to steal your topic here, Sam, but the flaw in that is teams play down. The surprise team that gets up there and wins the division ends up playing down. And so I do think, all the schedules that are ranked really hard are more likely to come back everything is going to probably regress towards the means. Schedule that looks really easy probably ends up being harder than it's supposed to be. The schedule that looks really hard usually ends up being easier. Would you agree?
No, because this is based on Vegas win totals. I'm not basing it on last year's record. If you're basing it on last year's record, yes, that's accurate. If you're basing,
I just want to be clear. So you're comparing this year's Vegas win totals versus, but I'm talking about the other seasons. Our end of the year, we knew what the team ended up being. Now this year, we were comparing a projection.
I'm saying every year, if you compare the Vegas win total projection versus what actually ends up being their end of the year strength of schedule, their strength of schedule has been easier than people anticipated. And that doesn't mean it's been easy. It's just been easier than what's been initially projected. I don't think the Chiefs will wind up having the 6th toughest schedule in the NFL this year, for example, even though when you look at the Vegas win totals, they're ranked as having the 6th toughest schedule in the NFL. There's also something else that stands out to me. Jeff touched on one of them, which is their most difficult games other than Buffalo are at Arrowhead. You've got the Lions, you've got the Commanders, you've got the Eagles at Arrowhead, you've got the Texans at Arrowhead. And last year, what were we all talking about this time? How are you going to navigate 3 games in 11 days? And Jeff beat this drum over and over again. Those 3 games in 11 days were against tough physical opponents. I don't see that sort of stretch on this schedule where I'm wondering, man, this team's going to get beat up late in the year. So the Chiefs are always going to have a tough schedule because they play a first place group, but I just don't think it's quite as monstrous as what we envisioned maybe last year could have been.
Yeah, and I guess my point is I don't think the first place schedule ever ends up being as hard as it's supposed to be, because the first place team, like everybody was up.
Again, I'm based on Vegas win total projections, though, not based on how they did last year.
I understand, but I'm just saying at the end of the year, I think the Chiefs' schedule looked tough last year and played easier. I think that's the benefit of being a first place team. I think it usually does play easier just at the end of the year. That ends up being the case, and I think that'll probably be the case here. But on paper, going in, the league has accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. That's giving the first place teams the harder schedule based upon last year's results, right? And that's what they have to go on. I do think going out on the road and playing in Brazil, that game got tougher because it's a virtual home game when they play in Los Angeles. I'm sure there'll be more Chiefs fans than Charger fans down there, but there'll be a lot of fans that are just football fans down there as well. What does this do? They've got 9 home games, 8 road games. One of them ends up being, on paper, that should get a little bit easier, but I think it actually gets a little bit tougher with the Chargers. Jeff, what do you think of playing in Brazil and how it affects the Chiefs' win-loss total?
Well, I know one guy who wasn't happy about it. It's Travis Kelce. Didn't seem to be too excited about being in that heat the first week of the season. And it's always different when you're going to. It's be one thing if it was Germany or London or someplace like that that's more familiar that teams have been to. You're going to a whole different part of the world, and anytime you're traveling out of the country, that comes with a lot of different variables that some you can control, some you can't. And look, I would pick them to win the first game of the season because that's what they usually do. But an in-division game against a tough team that's going to be really physical in a very humid, hot environment, I think it's going to be a really – I wouldn't put it as like a gimme game for the Chiefs by any stretch. I think it's going to be a really difficult start to the season for them.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? The good news is it is unfamiliar territory. I agree with Jeff, and like going through customs, whatever that might be a little bit more difficult than normal. I don't know. I don't know how a charter plane, how much easier. I know it's easier than the lines that, us schmoes stand in to go through the process, but I don't know how much it adds. But it is only 2-hour time difference. Instead of it being 6-8 hours difference, it's only 2 hours time difference when they go down there. What does this do to the Chiefs' win-loss abilities?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're favored 2.5 early on. I was trying to gauge what they'd be favored in LA, and I think it'd be a pretty similar number. You're right, Soren. Those games, like the Chargers really don't play home games. I mean, if you've got, Pittsburgh, Philly, the Chiefs, even the Raiders, the Broncos, like those teams bring, at least a third of the crowd usually. So it's not really like this team has lost its home game. The one spot where I think the Chiefs stand to benefit from this, and when I say the Chiefs, I mean specifically Andy Reid, is they'll get to start training camp earlier because they play a couple days earlier. And Andy Reid will take advantage of having those 2 extra days of practice early on in training camp, and that, they won't have any more practices before the first game. Then they'll have some extra time before the Eagles come to Kansas City. And I realize they'll be traveling back from Brazil. That's a different flight than coming back from LA, but they'll get a couple extra days to prepare for the Eagles. And Andy Reid, when he's got extra rest, has always been terrific. So I see a benefit on the front and back end of it. The game itself, I don't think it's any easier for them. I agree with what you guys have said. Like, the Chargers are going to be a really tough opponent. Playing them in the heat, a team that, prioritized increasing the amount of reps I think they'll have with their running game. That's going to be a tough draw playing in the heat. So I totally agree with you guys about that game itself.
Did I miss something? Was it going to be cool in Kansas City? Like, is it cool in LA in the first few days of September? Like, how much hotter? I mean,
LA's got a dome, right?
It's in a covered stadium. It's not a dome, but it is open air. But like, what do we think it was going to be in Kansas City? And am I wrong? Is Sao Paulo 115 degrees? Maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe this is like playing in Vegas or something.
Last year,
they haven't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, they haven't played a day game to open in an outdoor stadium that in a hot environment since when? It's been a long time since it's happened, right?
Yeah. I mean, they played some hot night games because it's early September and it's hot. It's hot at Arrowhead.
Hey, so I'm just telling you, Kelsey was complaining about it. He wasn't complaining about playing hot games in Kansas City week 1.
By the way, Steven says, just Googled Sao Paulo in September. Not that hot. Average 75 for a high. Okay. So, maybe Kelsey should read a little before he, Steven, nice work. I like that. And I assume you're correct. I don't think Steven's sandbagging us on this one. I don't think that's going to be, and I don't think that's what his intentions are there to, throw us off. Listen, I can tell you that you're always in good hands if you own a business and you've got a parking lot you need it taken care of. Our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete got you covered. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, let's talk about the prime time games, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I mean, come on. Like, I don't know. This has got to create some crap at home. Somebody at home's got to not be happy, whether it's moms or girlfriends or wives. But beyond that, 7 primetime games overall, but both the holidays, Jeff. I mean, I don't know, cruel and unusual punishment. Chiefs sign up for it. Their arms in the air. Yeah. We've talked about that, but I still think what a bag of suck for the families.
Mark Donovan and Clark Hunter happy. I know that much.
Yeah.
They want to be right there front and center.
They're begging for these games.
Yeah. So, and it's look, when we talked about this a couple of days ago, I was laughing about how this was going to play when we start talking about the Christmas game. It's just, I imagine that it's not the best case scenario as far as preparation, and you don't know what the injury situation is going to be like and how banged up guys are going to be. But this is what they want, and you're going to be the marquee team on 2 holidays. I've heard people talk about or suggesting are the Chiefs America's team now. I don't necessarily agree with that, but they are certainly going to have opportunities to get more people to watch them and fans around the world getting into them. So I think it's a good thing for the brand. And I think that's what they care most about over at Arrowhead One.
Yeah. What do you think of getting hit with both holidays? I mean, to me, when I saw that schedule, I thought, okay, this is the Thanksgiving game. They're going to put Chiefs Cowboys. They're not going to miss this opportunity. That's going on there. Then the Christmas thing came around. I thought, okay, they'll take them off Christmas. The Christmas thing came around, and I was like, okay, I don't think they're going to give them both because they, only have to play the one Thursday game. So I was a little bit surprised. Sam, are you at all surprised that they tagged both?
No, I mean, I think they are America's team. I mean, if they aren't, I don't know who is. I mean, they've got more primetime games than anybody. And that's what really stood out to me. I mean, look, we all know this already, but sometimes we have these sorts of moments that prompt you to step back and consider the big picture. And this prompted me to step back and consider the big picture of what the Chiefs have built. I mean, this is the team from Kansas City, one of the 5 smallest markets in the NFL, that is going to be in prime time 7 times, 8 of their 17 games. At least you could still have that last game in week 18 as well. So 8 of their first 16 games are going to be standalone games where the NFL has wiped out its schedule and say, you're going to be watching the Chiefs at this time. And for those of us who are here, all 3 of us who are here in Kansas City and watch the Scott Pioli and the Todd Haley years, to consider that this is what the Chiefs have become. Like I said, there's sometimes where these moments offer you the opportunity to step back and consider the big picture. And to me, I mean, this was not what we learned, what we already knew, but this reinforced is the Chiefs' past couple of years of their schedule is not a reward or punishment, however you view it, for being Super Bowl champions. This is purely about the brand now. They've got 2 more primetime games than the Eagles have. Like, the Eagles took the Lombardi trophy, but they didn't take this aura that the Chiefs have to the rest of the league. And I think if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I totally understand if you're like, man, that's Thanksgiving and Christmas. But to me, it's a pretty cool thing, just what they've been able to build with their brand itself.
There's no doubt that, and they are, and we've talked about it. I think Clark Hunt recognizes this is his moment to try to create a Steeler, Packer, Cowboy type following, and he's doing it. And I think he's accomplished it. And they want to get as much out of this Patrick Mahomes era as they can. I mean, you got an owner who is relatively young. What's Clark Hunt? Creeping up on 60 years old, late 50s, I think now. Who stood, next to his father watching a barren wasteland of like 40 years for the better part. I mean, 50 years between championships, 40 years of kind of ineptitude along the way, maybe 35 years of ineptitude. And he recognizes, he knows what it is he has right now, and he is capitalizing it on. And that's why his hand goes in the air every time. It's like, internationally, sure. Primetime, yes. 7 primetime games, Jeff. They went through a gauntlet of playing 6 of the 7 days. Last week, they only play 5 of the 7 days. I think that's right. No, they don't play on Friday. So only 4 days, right?
Yeah,
no, they do play on Friday. They do play on Friday.
Yeah, they cut out Saturday unless they play that the last game of the year, and then they don't have Wednesday. So it's 2 fewer days of the week than a year ago.
Yeah, still 4 different days. There is kind of a run of 12 o'clock games late, though. How about the primetime nature of it? This team has proven they can handle it. I get that. But, you can prove that you can, squat 500 pounds. But if you have to do it over and over again, you're eventually going to break down. Is there any chance of them, if they are thin, that this kind of, schedule all over the place ends up wearing on them during the season?
There's always that possibility. I mean, Travis Kelce's not a spring chicken. Chris Jones is getting older. You've got – I think people need to understand that last year was an anomaly in terms of their ability to win 15 games, 8 or 9 by 1 score. Like, those were a lot of intense games. And yeah, when you're playing prime time, the other team's jacked up too. They're ready to go. And so, yeah, I do think there's going to be more of a challenge in those moments. And I think that it's probably smart to think they're not going to win all of them. And so it comes down to, we'll get into the question of what's the most critical stretch, what's the toughest stretch in a second here. But I think ultimately, I think the primetime games, again, come back to the brand. I don't think they're America's team. I think they're America's biggest draw right now. I think the Cowboys, the Steelers, those guys are always going to be talked about more nationally because of what they've built.
Interesting. You don't think that this is the sorry to interrupt you, Jeff, but I hear what you're saying, that those brands are older and but like, you don't think this is the new money, right?
I think what Jeff is,
or like Apple ain't going away. It isn't a Rockefeller, but you see what I'm saying? Like
I think
they're joining that group.
I think once Patrick Mahomes retires, they're not going to be on prime time as much. I don't think they're going to be talked about the same way. I think in this window, they're bigger. But the Cowboys talked about every day. Every time you turn on ESPN, they're talking about the Cowboys, no matter what's happening.
Let me add this to what Jeff's point is, which is the second most primetime games in the league is the Cowboys still. They still have 6 primetime games. Like the Cowboys are not one of the best teams in the league. I don't think any of us think they're one of the best teams in the league. They have more primetime games than the Eagles. They've got 2 more than the Baltimore Ravens do. And the Baltimore Ravens, obviously, are who they are. They've got more than the Bills do. So I think that's Jeff's point, is that their staying power as America's team has outlasted them being competitive. I still think that.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean outlasted them being competitive? They'd been in the playoffs like 4 years in a row before last year, and they had injuries. Like, they're not a bad team. They're not. This is not the Raiders that are getting this kiss. They
were still this even when they weren't.
I mean, they've sucked too.
I mean, they've had some bad straight. They went 6-10, 8-8, 8-8, 8-8, and 4 straight years.
8-8, not 4-12, 4-12, 3-13, 5-11. We have. I mean, I get your.
They've been there too.
I get your point. They have not pissed a drop when it comes to a conference championship game in forever. I understand that. But the actual on-field performance of the Dallas Cowboys under Jerry Jones post Jimmy Johnson is not the same as Jimmy Johnson, but it's vastly underrated. The idea that they have just sucked is not true. They have a quarterback in place. They're generally a 500 team or better. And so they are actually a safe team to put on the schedule with all their draw. I do agree that they are. I'm not trying to knock their brand at all. I agree with everything you say about their brand. But I think that brand is there for the Packers, but Jordan Love isn't carrying the same kind of juice that Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers did, right? But when you look in the stands is what I'm talking about. When you go on the road and you see a road game, wherever Green Bay goes, wherever Pittsburgh goes, wherever Dallas goes, you see their fans. You are seeing that with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Jeff, your point is valid. Let's see if it still looks like that when Patrick Mahomes is gone. And what I am telling you is I am predicting that it will look like that the Chiefs are the latest team amongst those 3. And I don't think there are any other 3. If I'm wrong, fill me in on what other team. Like, there are teams that have had great success throughout the lineage of the NFL, like the Giants, but you go to a road game, it's not in Denver, the Giants go play, it's not packed with Giants fans. There are 3 franchises that really bring it on the road regardless of what's going on. And I believe
what about the Patriots? Would you include them?
I haven't been.
That's a great comp.
The Patriots, I think, are the best comp for the Chiefs, right? Because they came out of nowhere, and then they had their dynasty. Like, I think that's the example we should look at for the Chiefs.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I will tell you that I believe, at least right now, Patrick Mahomes is more popular than Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady became a villain, but that's a great point. I listen, what I was going to build to, and probably took way too long getting there, so I apologize, was that we will see. We don't know until Patrick Mahomes walks away. And do they put Andrew Luck in behind Peyton Manning? And all those factors that'll be there. If they go back to sucking, then we'll really see. But I do believe, would you agree that wherever the Patriots are, like that if they're not one of those 3, which I would agree with you, they're not. It's a great point you make there, Sam. But they're probably number 4.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the 49ers draw a lot of road fans. The Eagles draw a lot of road fans, even
in the 49ers
8 range.
The 49ers are a team that are living off their Joe Montana, Steve Young days. I mean, that's what made them the draw. So, okay, maybe they won't go. Sure. Maybe I'm being a complete homer and putting the Chiefs into that Packer, Steeler, Cowboy run.
Well, they're there right now. We're saying they're there right now.
They're number 1 right now. But I think that it's harder now because you have more options as a fan now. Even as they're putting the Chiefs in people's faces for 8 standalone games in 16 weeks, you still have the option to watch all the other games in a way you didn't when the Steelers built theirs, when the Packers built theirs, when the Cowboys built theirs. Sometimes that was one of only 2 games you had for the whole week to watch. So it's different now. There's just way more competition than there used to be.
That's a fair point. I do. I hear what you're saying, and maybe they're not ready to add into that first tier, but I think they will have staying power in at least the second tier where you're talking about Patriots, 49ers. I think they'll be there. We'll see. We'll really know, as Jeff said, when Patrick Mahomes walks away. The bye week on week 10, Jeff, perfect spot. Too late with this schedule. What do you think about where it lands?
I I think it's a good spot given the stretch they're going to be in because they're going to be playing a lot of tough teams. I think probably ideally they'd probably love to have it later. If given how much football they play and how much they expect to be playing deep into January, but I think it's fine where it's at. I always feel like teams that get later buys tend to have a little bit of an advantage, especially good teams, because they can kick it in for the final stretch and be a little fresher.
Yeah. Where do you think Week 10? How does that affect the Chiefs' ability to win here, Sam?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I think the Chiefs would have the bye as late as they possibly can. Immediately, we've always seen it give the Chiefs an impact. I've mentioned the stat before in terms of playoff and when they rest their guys, but Andy Reid is 29-3 when he's coming off a bye and the other team is not, which is the situation they'll have. Now, the Broncos, when they come off the bye, will be playing the Thursday night game ahead of time, so they'll have some extra rest too. But the reason he's so good at the bye, like he'll get asked every year, what's with your record after a bye? I always look at when the other team doesn't have a bye because I think that's a better distinct advantage. But to me, why he has that record is Andy Reid self-scouts really well when he's able to have that time to take a step back and self-scout. Last year, they only had 5 games of film to do that. And so they didn't have the same advantage that they would have on a normal year. This year, I think that's why it falls at a good time because you're going to have just played 2 really tough opponents. The Bills could be a team you're going to have to face in the postseason. Washington, I think we all think is going to be a pretty good opponent. And those games being on film before you get to self-review what you've done for the past 9 games, I think is going to be a pretty good time for them.
Yeah, I like the Week 10. I think it's perfect. Sets you up for a strong stretch run to make your final push to get in there. I think it lands in a really nice spot for the Chiefs. I mean, I think it's what Andy Reid likes. It's what he wants. And, I think you can make a case that where was the bye week last year? Wasn't it it was pretty early.
It was like
week
6.
Week 6. They played 5 games, and they had to play a Monday night game before the bye too, which was a little bit of a rip. I think most importantly, it falls in a great week for us because we get to do like midseason grades. You can't do midseason grades in week 6.
Yeah. So again, it's all about us, right, Sam? That's what you've always said.
Well,
it's
the
all
schedule,
about you and your ability.
The schedule, no more than anything else, is about us. No cold, like you want to really evaluate this schedule. No cold weather cities after Thanksgiving. This is a terrific schedule for those of us who go to the games.
After Thanksgiving, the Broncos game is in Kansas City, right?
After Thanksgiving, well, you've got the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, you've got Tennessee and Vegas after Thanksgiving, and a whole lot of home games after Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah. Oh man, how about that? Sam only has to.
It's a good schedule. There's not even this is not just relevant for me. This is relevant for the Chiefs. They don't have back-to-back weeks of playing road games all year long. Yeah. Now they've got a bye sandwiched between a couple road games, but there's not 2 consecutive weeks where the Chiefs will be on the road all year long.
Yeah, and they play, is that the 2 back-to-back games at home? They've got week 6 and 7, Lions and Raiders. No, 3.
They've got
Lions, Raiders, Commanders.
Yeah, they've got a 3, and then they've got a 2 late
Texans,
in the
Chargers.
year. Yeah,
yep, Texans, Chargers, 14-15.
That's what happens because they play the first game on the road, the last game on the road, and they've got the 9 home game season. So there's only 5 other road games to sandwich in there.
Yeah. It's from that standpoint, I guess I had not connected those dots. That is a nice perk for the Chiefs. I agree with you on that. That helps. That gets you like that's worth. I don't know. I guess it's not worth like 4 wins or something, but I mean that gives you like it could go either way. You take the Chiefs when you get some of those in that stretch, right?
I always think it's an advantage in that sense. I mean, some teams I think do benefit from having the road trips. I think there's fewer distractions, for example, in the playoffs when you don't have to worry about getting tickets for family members in the AFC Championship game. I thought the Chiefs did benefit from that in Baltimore a couple of years ago because I thought they were the lesser team than Baltimore was at that time. But for the most part, not having to go back-to-back road trips, I think, is an advantage.
We are always brought to you by our fine sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete and our friends at Suede Cannabis, formerly Besame Wellness.
Big moves, bigger vibes. If you haven't heard, Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Our colors and name may have changed, but you'll still experience the same great service on top of better deals, longer hours, and faster delivery. Smithville, Liberty, Kansas City, Warrensburg, and North Kansas City. No matter which location you visit, you'll feel right at home. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuadeCannabis.com. Life should be dope. Let's make it happen. Suede Cannabis.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's talk about the most critical stretch of the schedule. Jeff, where do you think we kicked around, by the way, most difficult, what's the difference between the two? Is there a most difficult part, but a more critical part? You can break that down however you want on there. But what are you looking at where you go? Ooh, that's big.
I'll put critical as the start. I'll go weeks 1 through 4. And I'll say that because the Chiefs are notoriously good at starting fast, and they've got some challenges. As we just said, that Brazil game is going to be an interesting variable. And I forgot because the heat made me start thinking about what happened now. The field conditions were really bad down there. The teams were complaining about the safety, about not being able to go out and do certain things. So those are some things that.
Is this the same stadium? Is this the same city and same stadium as they played in last year?
I believe so, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't remember if they played in Rio or where in Brazil they played. I think it's interesting that they're playing in Sao Paulo and not Rio if they've done it 2 years in Sao Paulo. Not here.
Yeah, they played in Sao Paulo last year. I guess I would assume it's the same stadium. The Chiefs have had that issue before. Remember Mexico City, even the game that was canceled. The next year, the players in the locker room were still complaining about the field. It wasn't as though the field had been in great condition. And if you remember, they also opened the season a few years ago in Arizona, which had the field issues because that's where they used their training camp. And Trent McDuffie got hurt. And
the kicker got hurt.
Yeah. And Harrison Butker got hurt. Was never really the same for the rest of that season.
Yeah. So I'll go with that. Because if they lose that game, then you're talking about the Eagles and the Ravens coming in to the next 3 weeks, and that's going to be even harder. So I think it's imperative that they at least get 2 games. They get 3, that they're off to a great start. But I think all 3 of those 4 games are going to be rough. The Giants, they'll win.
Okay. By the way, I didn't realize our listenership was, such an expert on Brazil. Noah John says Sao Paulo is massive, double the size of Rio. Am I missing? I was like,
hey, I met one of our listeners from Australia last week.
Yeah.
In a bar. He came up to me, a Kansas City guy living in Australia who watches the show. Hopefully he's watching right now.
Really? Yeah. Just came up and said, hey, I know you, What time is it when we're on in Australia?
Yep. They did.
It's like, I don't know, 5 a.m.
That deep into the conversation, but
okay. I was a high buy, Jeff Chadiha, big deal.
Someone will chime in the way they're going right now, right? We got the temperature in Brazil and the size of Sao Paulo.
It's 1:30 a.m. in Sydney right now.
1:30 in Sydney. And what's the temperature? Can we get that? By the way, how about this, Noah John? I'm in Indonesia. It's 11:30 p.m. Right, there you go. So, worldwide, the global effect of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. You got to like it. Australia, Indonesia. We'll pick up some Brazilian. By the way, are you going, Sam, right? You're going to go to the Brazil game?
I anticipate I'll be going, yeah.
Jeff, you'll be down there, right?
Me?
Yeah.
No? I've never done an international game anywhere, and I'm trying to keep that streak alive.
I'm
like Sam, like being in the States.
I am what they say as a definite maybe, right? Definite maybe is where I'm at on that one. All right, Sam, where's the most difficult stretch in the schedule in your mind?
Well, I agree with Jeff.
It's critical, right?
Yeah, critical.
I agree with Jeff. It's the opening week, but I'll point out just to have a little bit of variety here. The most critical might just be after their first loss and how they respond. I thought 2 years ago, one of the reasons that they got significantly better in the playoffs when they won in Buffalo, won in Baltimore, and beat a really good Eagles team was because they had 2 losses in that year that specifically like kicked them into gear. One was the opener. They lost to the Lions, if you remember 2 years ago. They won the next 6 games. And then when they lost on Christmas Day, that team was completely different afterwards. They realized that they needed to operate different offensively, and they were different. And last year, their only loss was against the Bills. And I think they chalked it up to saying the Bills are a really good team, and we played them on the road, and we were right there on a 4th down stop away from giving the ball to Patrick Mahomes and winning that game in Buffalo. There wasn't really anything wrong with that performance. They didn't really have the opportunity to evaluate themselves the way they needed to. And I say that, in a holistic picture. That team certainly evaluates themselves. They didn't think they were playing as great offensively as they should. But the players themselves didn't get the reminder in the form of a loss. It was constantly winning anyway. And I think they were constantly reminded last year, it's good enough. It doesn't have to be better because it doesn't, because they keep winning. And so I think a critical point of the season will be, how do they respond whenever they do lose a game this year?
Yeah. A couple things here. Our friend Renee says worldwide. That's right. That's right. We are worldwide. This is my favorite. Where'd it go? Now I got to find it. I didn't realize this till I saw somebody said, nice one, James. James said, hey, Jeff, it's Dorian O'Daniel. Yeah. He was wearing a shirt this time, so you couldn't see the big arrowhead and the 44 tattoo, right?
That's right. Yeah. This guy was white. This guy was tall and white. But yeah, that's a good line.
You know what? Dorian O'Daniel played so little, he could be tall and white.
He'd be the bartender, but the guy serving my drinks would be Dorian O'Daniel.
I don't have much to add. Weeks 1 through 4 is definitely the spot that to me is the critical spot here. I mean, because I think the Chargers are going to be a bitch. Eagles, Giants is their one breather, but I feel like after you come off, the weird travel and the Eagles get an extra day off even the Chiefs. I know the Chiefs get extra time, and the Eagles don't have to do some funky travel in there as well. So it is a distinct advantage for the Eagles as far as the rest and travel the week before. I know the game's in Kansas City. That makes the Giants a letdown. I know, Jeff, you don't buy those things, but a total letdown with the Ravens on the other side. It's the ultimate trap game, Jeff. It's a letdown with a look ahead on the other side.
I will say the Giants are scary because of what they're building with their pass rush. We will find out how good the left tackle, left side of the line is going to be. So probably in that game.
So maybe the Giants aren't that good overall, but they could be a bad matchup for a Chiefs team that's trying to figure out its offensive line. That's a great point. But then the Ravens on the other side, I think that 1 through 4 is tough, man, because I think, it's not just like, oh, well, it's the toughest stretch here. I got to pick something. Like, I don't think there's any way you look at that and you don't go, wow, that's a really difficult stretch. And like I said, I do think the Giants, while the Chiefs will be the better team, and Jeff, I hadn't even factored in the fact, your point that maybe the best part of the Giants is going to be the Chiefs, is going to pick at the Chiefs' biggest weakness. But I do believe in letdowns and look aheads, and that's how you get a trap game. They got a letdown and a look ahead in this situation with the Giants. So I think the worst thing that could happen is for the Giants to come into that game 0-2 with 2 hard-fought losses. Like if the Giants are 0-2 after losing on like a field goal late and driving, and or even both of them driving, and their offense just still kind of sucks, and Russell Wilson can't get it done, but they end up losing by 1 score or less, and the Chiefs 0-2 Giants. Boy, the Ravens on the other side though, that's going to be tough. I think it could be a really difficult situation for the Chiefs, even on that Giant game.
He says that now he's going to quote unquote unleash the fury. Week 3 prediction that Friday. I can't wait till he's got 40-17 in that game.
Yeah. Why don't you shut your mouth? Why don't you just shut your mouth, Sam? What's the easiest stretch, Jeff? What do you look at and go, okay, this is where they get a chance to take a breath?
End of the season, last 3 weeks. The Broncos won't be an easy game, but you're getting them at home, and you got them, the Titans on one end of that, and the Raiders on the other end of that. I feel like that could be a game that could be a stretch there where I think the Chiefs are going to have a much tougher time winning the division this year. There'll be a fight for it, and those 3 games might allow them to pull away at the end to get, 9 straight division titles or 10? What is it, 10? Where are they at now? Is it, I don't care. Lost count.
Every year they won it in the last year that Alex Smith started. So 17.
For the last 2 years, right?
17 to 24. Was it the last 2? I thought it was just 17.
Yeah, it was the last 2
No,
years.
they won 16 too. They went 12-4 in that because that was that Steelers year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 16 to 24 would be
9 straight years. They're in 10. They're going for 10.
It'd be 10. Okay, it'd be 10. Yeah, so.
And so you are picking them to win it again?
I'm saying if they
right
win
now.
it, they'll probably pull away then.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we highlighted that bold and daring prediction.
Yeah, we got time. We got a lot of podcasts, but in between now and then.
Yeah, not as many as you think. We always we get to the offseason, we're like, oh, Jesus, man, here we go. And then all of a sudden I look up and I'm like, we have all these different things we like to do each year. And then it's like, there's only 4 open, windows. So be careful, Jeff. How about you, Sam? Easiest stretch.
Yeah, the way they close, but I'll stretch it out to the final 5 weeks just because the 2 games preceding those last 3 are at home. They get the Texans at home with 5 weeks to play. I think the Texans are going to have a mediocre season. You get the Chargers at home, then the 2 dates you travel are Tennessee. You get home, get the Broncos. You travel to Vegas. So 5 games, 3 are at home. 2 are at Tennessee and at Vegas. That's a pretty good way to close the season.
So you're calling it the whole last 5?
December and on, yeah.
Okay.
And he's picking the Colts to win the AFC South.
Well, I don't know about the Colts.
It's mediocre.
I
think 9-8 could win that division. Mediocre might be good enough to win that division.
Yes. So week 14 to 18, I'm putting you down for Texans, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit different. I think it's going to end up being 12 to 14. I think it's Colts to Texans because I think the Cowboys, it's going to be interesting to see when George Pickens implodes because it might not be this year. And then that'll get him paid. And then it will definitely be early in next year, right? It will happen. It's just a matter of when.
I'm going to tell you, it's going to be this year. That guy's not going to be a non-distraction for a whole year.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of money sitting out there. I think he could be on his best behavior. I tend to agree with you, but I think there is an outside chance that he'll keep it together, but probably not. And that's why the Cowboy game down in Dallas, I'm not real scared of. I think the Colts are going to be bad. I think they will implode at some point during the year when it starts to go wrong for them. I think the Cowboys could be imploding at that point, and I think the Texans are taking a step back, right? Like losing Laramie Tunsil from an offensive line that already had issues. I don't see it unless the local kid Ursary ends up being the answer, and because I don't think any of us think Cam Robinson's the answer, right?
No.
Okay,
right.
So
I talked about moving the right guard to left guard, the right tackle to left tackle. The kid who moved the guard last week, Titus Howard. He might be their left tackle.
Yeah. Okay.
That usually works out whenever you move the guard to tackle.
Yeah. Well, he went from tackle to guard.
Usually a sign of just a really good offensive line, just putting all the pieces in the right spot.
We're so good. We're having to force him over to tackle. Yeah. We're just so deep. But that's how it works. Yeah. I like that. I think Colts, Cowboys, Texans. Like, I don't think the Colts are going to be good. I think the Cowboys will regress, and I think the Texans will regress. Anybody pounding the drum for any of those 3 teams to be better than what, or to just be what they're supposed to be? I think they're going to be worse than expected.
Yeah, the Cowboys, I think, are probably the team you would pick if you had to pick one, but their division got a lot tougher. I mean, the Eagles are tough. Commanders got a lot tougher last year. I'm still interested to see what Daniels does in his second year, same way it was with Stroud last year. But they're going to be good. And then I agree with Jeff. Like, the Giants aren't going to be good, but they're sort of in this Raiders territory where they're going to be better. Like, you've got competency in places you didn't have competency a year ago.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. So in the end, the Chiefs' record is what, Jeff?
Oh, we didn't do toughest stretch.
Well, okay. I thought we were combining that, but go ahead. What's the toughest stretch?
Well,
I'll add it in.
Okay. Well, does Sam have one?
Okay, Sam, toughest.
Yeah, I've got one. Yeah,
you can slap one again. Okay, I'm going 4 through 11, weeks 4 through 11, and I'm throwing the Ravens back in here. Well, I picked the stretches because the variety of teams they'll play. I think they've always had troubles with mobile quarterbacks, and I think teams that can run the ball pretty effectively. And so you're looking at the Ravens, you're looking at the Lions, looking at the Commanders, the Bills, and the Broncos.
Okay.
In that stretch.
I'm trying to see.
Now you get the Jaguars in there, and I think the Raiders are in there somewhere. But
yeah,
I think to me, like seeing Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels, and within whatever that is, a 5-week period is a lot.
Okay. Sam, toughest stretch for you.
Yeah, I mean, I would still just go with the opening month. I mean, if you sandwich a specific part of Jeff's and just go Lions, Raiders, Commanders, Bills, like those are 3 of those 4 games are pretty tough. But I can't imagine many teams open the schedule tougher than the Chiefs do for the opening month. I mean, the Chargers are a playoff team a year ago. The Eagles are the Super Bowl winners and the Super Bowl favorites. A trip to New York is a little bit tougher because it's on a Monday night. It's in prime time. And then you've got a short week to come home and play Baltimore, who I still contend was the best non-Chiefs team in the AFC last year, even though they lost to the Bills. We know about how that game ended with a drop pass. They were every bounce of the ball went against them. It's in Buffalo, and they still should have won the game. So I think the Ravens are going to be good. I still think they're going to be every bit as good as the Bills. So you're playing the best NFC team, the best not outside. You take yourself out of the equation. You're playing the best NFC team and best AFC team in the opening month, and you got to play a division rival in Brazil.
Yeah. One quick point on what Sam's saying, and I don't know how much you guys looked at the other team schedules in the division, but the Broncos open with the Titans and the Colts, and so they could be 2-0. And the Chargers have 7 games.
I think there's a good chance the Chiefs are playing catch up. In fact, I was looking at it saying they may not take over first place till late.
Yeah. And the Chargers have 7 games against playoff teams, including the Chiefs and the Broncos. All 7 are at home.
Was it the
9 games against playoff teams, 7 are at home.
Okay.
Well, and don't correct me if I'm wrong. Don't the Bills have 6 non-playoff teams in their first 7?
So they don't leave the East Coast.
In terms of the that's the one that surprised me the most. That's the one that surprised me the most when I looked at strength of schedule based on Vegas over/under projections for the team. Is the Bills have the 5th easiest schedule in the NFL?
The AFC sucks. Man. I don't know if you got the memo.
Well, but when you look at the rest of their schedule, it's. I mean, that division plays what the South this year in the NFC. So it's the combination of, and what division do they play? I guess they do play the AFC North. But that schedule is, to your guys' point, I mean, that to me again emphasizes the first month of the season. You lose 2 of those games, and you probably are going to be playing catch up against the Bills, in particular when you talk about playoff seeding pretty quick. Now the Bills open against the Ravens, but listen to the Bills' schedule because they play the Ravens at home. After the Ravens at home, they play the Jets, Dolphins, Saints, Patriots, Falcons, bye, Panthers before they play the Chiefs. You could be talking about a team that's 7-0 before the Chiefs are traveling to Buffalo.
I'll take weeks 8 to 11. I know the bye week is in there in the middle of it, but Commanders, Bills, Broncos is 3 really tough games. And the bye week helps, but Denver has been kind of their kryptonite, to a degree, certainly in the division. And even if the Chiefs don't beat them, they play them tough. Or even if the Chiefs do beat them, the Broncos play them tough. But Commanders, Bills, Broncos is a tough stretch. And I think those 3 in a row. Again, the bye week softens it up a little bit, but that's 3 tough games. Super Bowl odds for those teams. Commanders 20-1, Bills 7.5-1, and Broncos 28-1. And I think the Broncos and the Chargers at 28-1 are teams that I'm going to consider betting to win the Super Bowl because you have good. In fact, I've seen 33-1 on the Broncos in some places. And if you can get that, that's a team that I think if Bo Nix is the real deal, there's real value to that team. And, betting the Eagles at 6.5-1, the Ravens at 7-1, the Chiefs up there at 8-1, there's no value in that. But I think that the Broncos are better. I think the Commanders might regress a little bit off of last year, but I think the Broncos might too, in the sense that they got a young quarterback and the sophomore slump could be there, but that could be a really difficult stretch. Jeff, your record for the Chiefs?
I have them at 11-6, and I've got that's just. I think they're going to lose a couple games to AFC West teams this year. Again, I think last year was the Broncos game at the end doesn't really count. So I think the Broncos and the Chargers could beat them at least once. And then I think somewhere in that Lions, Ravens, Commanders, Bills, Eagles stretch. I think the Ravens, they'll beat the Ravens because they usually beat the Ravens. But I think the Commanders, I think the Lions, I think the Bills and the Eagles will get them. That's my 6.
So you said 11-6.
Yep.
And last year you were not the low water guy, were you?
No, I think I was 11-6 or 12. I think I picked 11-6 last year because I picked it the year before, and they were 11-6.
That's right.
So,
that's what it was. I'm thinking of 2 years ago. Okay, so back to being just a hater. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Sam?
Yeah, I'll point out about that Broncos game because you're right, Jeff. That game doesn't really count, but I think a lot of Chiefs fans get it in their mind that the Chiefs just would have won that game.
Yeah.
And the Broncos should have won at Arrowhead, and they killed the Chiefs the year before in Denver. Yeah. Like, I don't think there was at all a gimme that the Chiefs just would have gone 16-1. This is why I call them 15-1, not. But anyway, for the record, I've got them at 12-5.
No commentary. Just
nothing
12-5. That's it.
12-5.
I want to pick the game.
We'll pick the games at some point later this year where we go game by game. Yeah. Now when I go through the schedule and decide their record, I'm like, okay, this is a coin flip. This is a coin flip. 1-1 in these two games. For example, that's how I envision the first 2 weeks of the season. Go 1-1 in those first 2 weeks.
I went 13-4 last year. They ended up being 15-2. I do think this one's tougher. I've got 12-5. What like right now? What would be a worst case scenario? Not Patrick Mahomes plays the games, right? If Patrick Mahomes gets hurt, a lot of things change. Patrick Mahomes plays all the games. Like if there's like a yin and yang effect, like they won all those close games last year, they lose all those close games this year. Where would it bottom out for you, Jeff?
Oh, I think they'd been 11-6, 12-5. I think it would have.
No, this year.
Oh.
If like this year in that scenario where last year they won all those close games, this year they lose them all. What's the worst case scenario for this year?
I think 11-6, 12-5. I think they're in that realm. I mean,
we've got them 11-6 overall.
We've got them 11-6. They can't be 12-5.
Like the worst case
or 12-5. I said.
Okay, but I'm saying what is like for me? I'm picking them 12.
Well, let me explain it this way: is the sense that the Chiefs last year won 6 games on the last snap.
Yeah,
they could have. Those are 6 losable games last year. In which case, if you somehow lose all 6, they weren't going to do it. But if you somehow lose all 6, worst case scenario becomes 9-8.
Right, and that's what I think it is this year. I think the worst case scenario this year is 9-8. Like I think that there are 8 games that are going to be dogfights, and probably 3 others that could be difficult, and they're not going to lose all 11. So I'm picking them 12-5, but I think because I think the Chargers, Eagles, Ravens, Lions, Bills, Commanders, I think all 6 of those teams are legit Super Bowl threats, and I think the Broncos, Texans, Cowboys, in other people's minds, are Super Bowl threats as well. And so
9-8, that's pretty fall. Fall.
My pick is 12-5, to be clear. My pick is 12-5, but I think if it comes off the rail, if Kelsey's done, like if he's out of shape and he's got nothing, and
if left tackle's not solved,
Rashee Rice gets an 8-game suspension, Hollywood Brown is hurt.
Yeah,
you know, like 9-8. I think it could tumble down to there. What's worst case for you, Sam?
Somewhere between. So the range for me is 10-7 to 15-2. Which is why I wound up at 12-5.
Okay.
Wow, 15-2. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, are they?
Last year was kind of everything went right? Yeah. Like that's what it was, and then they went 15-2. Like I think if you went back and said, let's play that season 10 times, I don't think they go 15-2 every time. I think they're.
I don't think they go 15-2 again. That might be one of the only 10. I mean, 6 games on the last snap of the 6 wins on the last snap of the game. Like that's not going to happen again.
Yeah.
Like,
I think low water would be 10-7, and that would be with a lot of things going bad.
I think
this is always going to be an 11-12 win team as long as Mahomes around.
You know, I want to say like, okay, the high water mark. Let's give them every home game. They've got 9 of them, but they don't play that well at home, right? They play better on the road. That's the thing is like, I get for betting purposes, you get excited that, the Eagles, the Ravens, that, Lions, Commanders are all in Kansas City, but they spit the bit in Arrowhead all the time.
Well, they were undefeated at home last year, and they won 2 playoff games,
which is out of character. Not the playoff games, but being undefeated at home is out of character for what this team has been, and that's where I think last year was the best case scenario.
I do think the division is going to. This is as vulnerable as they've been as far as winning the division since Mahomes has been here. I think that they legitimately could get off to a slow start. They could be chasing, and they could have things go bad. That I think when you lose where they lost the Super Bowl, everybody recalibrates how they look at you, and they think they can actually get over. So I think they're coming into the season with more people thinking, "Oh, we got a shot here now."
Let's close with that. Soren's betting the Broncos to win the Super Bowl. Jeff's picking the Chiefs to lose the division.
Soren picking them 9-8.
No, go ahead. Let's misstate everything.
That's what I heard.
Yep, that's what I heard too.
Let's misstate everything.
I think he called it his best case scenario, didn't you?
And Sam McDowell said last year was a complete fluke. Right? So let's sum it all up.
No, that might be the most accurate if we're going to go with the 3 misstatements.
Remember, we're always brought to you by some great sponsors. We always appreciate their support. GAN Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GANAsphalt.com. Our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you've been hurt in an accident, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers are Northland Injury Law. For more than 40 years, they've been serving Kansas City. If you've been hurt, text HURT, HURT, 22-222, or call 816-400 HURT and Suede Cannabis. If you haven't heard, Best of Me Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuedeCannabis.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.